Some stories never truly disappear. They simply wait for the right moment to resurface. Behind BTS's record-breaking success, sold-out stadiums, and global influence lies another history, one shaped by controversies that dominated headlines, divided public opinion, and ignited debates far beyond the K-pop industry. Some began with a single sentence, others with one unexpected decision, one brief moment caught on camera, or an incident that spiraled across the internet within hours. While some controversies eventually faded, others continue to be analyzed years later, raising questions that still have no universally accepted answers. What really happened behind the headlines, and how much of the story did the public actually see? This is K-Pop Fact Today, and these are the top 7 BTS controversies the media couldn't ignore, with the #1 case shocking millions. Number 7. His speech sparked international backlash. Autumn 2020 unfolded under unusual circumstances. Much of the world remained focused on the pandemic, while diplomatic tensions across East Asia continued to influence politics, business, and popular culture. It was during this period that BTS accepted the Van Fleet Award, an honor recognizing contributions to strengthening relations between South Korea and the United States. Standing before an international audience, RM delivered what appeared to be a routine acceptance speech. He reflected on the shared history between the two nations and paid tribute to those who had sacrificed during the Korean War, expressing hope that future generations would remember the painful lessons of the past. At first, the speech seemed no different from countless ceremonial remarks delivered at international events. But within hours, fragments of his words began spreading across social media, detached from their original context. What followed would quickly transform a moment of recognition into one of the most widely discussed controversies of BTS's career. As screenshots, translated excerpts, and short video clips circulated online, criticism rapidly intensified on Chinese social media platforms. Some users argued that RM's remarks focused only on the experiences of South Korea and the United States, while failing to acknowledge the role and sacrifices of Chinese soldiers during the conflict. Others defended the speech, pointing out the event itself specifically commemorated the alliance between South Korea and the United States, making RM's comments entirely consistent with the purpose of the award. The disagreement soon expanded far beyond music fandoms. Historians, political commentators, journalists, and international observers began offering different interpretations, illustrating how historical memory can vary dramatically depending on national perspective. Official records consistently show that RM never mentioned China directly during the speech. Nevertheless, the public debate increasingly centered not on what he explicitly said, but on how different audiences interpreted what they believed had been implied. The controversy soon reached the commercial world. Multiple reports indicated that promotional materials featuring BTS became temporarily unavailable on several Chinese e-commerce platforms. Various media outlets also reported that certain companies quietly adjusted marketing campaigns connected to the group, although the exact motivations behind every decision were never fully confirmed publicly. Because many corporations operating internationally seek to minimize political controversy, observers suggested that some businesses were responding cautiously to rapidly changing public sentiment rather than making direct political statements. At the same time, other brands continued their partnerships without interruption, demonstrating that the commercial impact varied significantly depending on the company and the market involved. Even today, discussions continue over how much of the reported business response resulted from coordinated corporate decisions and how much reflected temporary reactions to intense online pressure. Perhaps the most striking aspect of the incident was RM's own response, or rather, the absence of one. Despite the scale of the backlash, he did not issue an apology or retract his remarks. Official records show that BTS and their agency largely avoided escalating the situation through prolonged public statements. Instead, the controversy gradually lost momentum as global attention shifted toward other developments. For some observers, remaining silent reflected confidence that the original speech required no correction. Others viewed the decision as a strategic effort to prevent further diplomatic or media escalation. Without additional clarification from RM himself, both interpretations continue to coexist in public discussion. Years later, the speech remains a compelling example of how a few carefully chosen words can carry dramatically different meanings depending on history, politics, language, and audience. What began as an acceptance speech honoring remembrance became an international debate touching on nationalism, historical memory, corporate decision-making, and the unpredictable power of digital media. It also demonstrated how global celebrities increasingly operate in environments where cultural messages are interpreted through vastly different historical lenses, making even well-intended remarks vulnerable to controversy. Whether RM's speech was misunderstood, politically reframed, or simply interpreted through conflicting historical narratives remains a matter of perspective. But one question continues to linger long after the headlines faded. Was this controversy truly about the speech itself, or about the unresolved history that millions were already carrying before RM ever stepped onto that stage?
Number 6. Jin. A fan's actions led to a police investigation. June 2024 marked a long-awaited moment for millions of ARMY around the world. After completing his mandatory military service, Jin officially returned to public life, and the atmosphere surrounding his first fan event was filled with celebration, emotion, and anticipation. Thousands followed every update, while images of smiling fans welcoming him back quickly spread across social media. The event was designed to symbolize gratitude between an artist and the people who had supported him throughout his military enlistment. One of its most memorable segments allowed fans to briefly hug Jin in a carefully organized greeting line. For many, it represented a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Security procedures were in place, and the atmosphere initially appeared orderly. Yet, within a matter of seconds, a single, unexpected action transformed what should have been a joyful celebration into an international controversy that would dominate headlines for days. As fans moved through the greeting line one by one attendee suddenly kissed Jin without his consent during the hug. The moment was brief, but cameras positioned around the venue captured enough footage for clips to spread rapidly across online platforms. Within hours, countless videos, screenshots, and eyewitness accounts circulated worldwide. While some viewers initially questioned whether the footage accurately reflected what happened, additional recordings from different angles reinforced the same conclusion. Official reports and media coverage consistently described the incident as an unwanted physical act during a public event. The discussion quickly shifted away from celebrity gossip and toward a much broader issue: personal boundaries, consent, and the responsibilities of both fans and event organizers. The reaction from the global BTS fandom was immediate. Across multiple countries, fans expressed outrage, arguing that no public figure should be expected to tolerate physical contact beyond what they had explicitly agreed to. Many emphasized that admiration for an artist never grants permission to ignore personal boundaries, regardless of the circumstances. Others pointed out a double standard frequently seen in celebrity culture, suggesting that if a similar incident had involved a female artist being kissed unexpectedly by a fan, public condemnation might have been even faster and more unanimous. The controversy therefore expanded into a wider conversation about respect, consent, and how society often perceives unwanted physical contact differently depending on the gender of the victim. Various commentators noted that celebrity status should never diminish an individual's right to personal autonomy. As media attention intensified, South Korean authorities reportedly began reviewing the incident after complaints and public concern were raised. News outlets later reported that a police investigation was initiated to determine the circumstances surrounding the unauthorized kiss. Although legal procedures unfolded according to South Korean law, the case attracted international interest because it highlighted the complex relationship between celebrities and their supporters. Legal analysts explained that public events involving physical interaction do not automatically imply consent for actions beyond the agreed format. The investigation itself became a significant part of the story, illustrating that behavior often dismissed by some as over-enthusiastic fandom could instead carry serious legal implications. Official records focused on the investigation process rather than sensational speculation, while public debate continued across television programs, online forums, and social media platforms. Industry observers also questioned whether future fan events would require stricter security measures. Entertainment experts suggested that agencies might reconsider activities involving direct physical contact, fearing that one unpredictable incident could jeopardize both artist safety and public trust. Some argued that tighter regulations would inevitably reduce the intimate experiences many fans cherish, while others believed stronger precautions were necessary to protect everyone involved. The discussion extended beyond BTS, prompting broader conversations throughout the K-pop industry about balancing meaningful fan interactions with increasingly important safety considerations. Several commentators noted that the incident could influence how future fan meetings are designed, emphasizing prevention rather than reaction. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the controversy was how quickly one person's decision overshadowed an occasion intended to celebrate Jin's long-awaited return. Instead of focusing on his military discharge, achievements, and reunion with fans, headlines around the world centered on a moment lasting only seconds. It became a reminder that in the digital era, a single unexpected action captured on camera can redefine an entire event almost instantly. While the celebration itself represented months of anticipation and years of support, history may remember that day for an entirely different reason. And as the footage continues to circulate online, one uncomfortable question remains unanswered. Where should admiration end, and where does the violation of personal boundaries truly begin?
Number 5. Suga, the mistake that nearly damaged his reputation. The summer of 2024 had already been an eventful period for BTS, with each member pursuing individual schedules while the group's future reunion remained one of the most anticipated moments in the music industry. Public attention surrounding every member was unusually intense, and even routine activities often became national headlines within minutes. Against this backdrop, news suddenly emerged that Suga had been involved in an incident while operating an electric scooter after consuming alcohol. At first, only fragmented reports appeared online, with conflicting descriptions spreading rapidly across social media. Some early posts exaggerated key details, while others attempted to minimize the seriousness of the situation before official information became available. As more verified reports surfaced, however, the outline of what had happened became increasingly clear. Official records indicated that Suga had been investigated under South Korean law after riding an electric scooter while intoxicated. Although the incident did not resemble the dramatic scenarios imagined by many internet users during the first hours of speculation, it immediately became one of the biggest controversies of his career because it involved personal responsibility rather than rumors or misunderstandings. The controversy escalated with remarkable speed because public opinion had already begun forming long before all the facts were confirmed. Online discussions quickly divided into opposing camps. One side argued that operating any vehicle while under the influence, including an electric scooter, represented a serious lapse in judgment that should never be excused simply because the individual was a celebrity. Others cautioned against drawing conclusions solely based on incomplete reports, emphasizing that official investigations, not viral posts, should determine the facts. Various news organizations also pointed out that early descriptions of the incident contained inaccuracies, demonstrating how rapidly misinformation can spread during high-profile controversies. This confusion created an environment in which verified information competed with speculation, making it increasingly difficult for casual observers to distinguish confirmed facts from exaggerated claims circulating across digital platforms. As official statements emerged, Suga publicly acknowledged his mistake instead of attempting to deny or deflect responsibility. He issued an apology expressing regret to fans and the public, admitting that his actions had been inappropriate and recognizing the disappointment the incident had caused. His agency likewise released statements confirming cooperation with the relevant authorities. Official records further showed that legal proceedings continued according to South Korean regulations, with Suga accepting the consequences imposed under the law. Many legal commentators observed that the case demonstrated how celebrity status does not exempt public figures from legal accountability. At the same time, crisis communication specialists noted that promptly accepting responsibility often helps prevent controversies from escalating even further, particularly when the facts are relatively clear. Nevertheless, while the apology addressed the legal dimension, it did not immediately resolve the broader question of public trust. The incident also reignited a familiar debate regarding celebrity standards in South Korea. Some observers argued that public figures inevitably face stricter scrutiny because their influence extends far beyond entertainment. Others questioned whether internet outrage sometimes grows disproportionately larger than the actual legal circumstances, especially when internationally famous celebrities are involved. Various commentators emphasized that accountability and proportionality should coexist, suggesting that accepting legal responsibility should not necessarily result in permanent public condemnation. Meanwhile, critics maintained that role models carry an additional obligation to demonstrate responsible behavior regardless of their accomplishments. These competing perspectives continued to dominate public discussion long after the immediate news cycle began to slow. Perhaps one of the most revealing aspects of the controversy was how dramatically the narrative evolved within just a few days. Initial rumors painted an increasingly sensational picture before official information corrected several misconceptions. This sequence highlighted a recurring pattern in the digital age. The first version of a story often travels faster than the verified one. Media analysts later pointed to the incident as another example of how celebrity controversies frequently become amplified through incomplete reporting, selective editing, and emotionally charged online reactions. Although the essential facts ultimately became clearer through official announcements and documented legal proceedings, the early confusion continued influencing public perception long afterward. For many casual observers, separating verified evidence from viral speculation proved far more difficult than simply reacting to the first headline. Today, the incident remains one of the most frequently discussed chapters in BTS's modern history, not because it involved conspiracy or hidden secrets, but because it demonstrated how a single moment of poor judgment can overshadow years of carefully built public trust. Suga accepted responsibility, apologized publicly, and faced the legal consequences established by the authorities, allowing the controversy to gradually subside over time. Yet the debate surrounding accountability, forgiveness, and the expectations placed on global celebrities continues whenever the case is revisited. And perhaps that is the most enduring mystery of all. When a public figure openly admits a mistake and accepts the consequences, at what point does accountability truly end, and when, if ever, does public forgiveness begin?
Number 4. Jhope, the decision that divided public opinion in Korea. By 2023, South Korea was approaching one of the most sensitive chapters in the history of BTS. Military service had become an unavoidable reality for every member, ending years of speculation over whether the group might receive a special exemption because of its unprecedented cultural influence around the world. Stadiums had been sold out across multiple continents, international awards had accumulated year after year, and BTS had become one of South Korea's most recognizable cultural exports. Yet, despite those extraordinary achievements, one fundamental question remained unresolved. Should global cultural impact be considered equal to achievements in sports or classical arts, categories that had historically qualified for limited military exemptions under South Korean law?
It was within this national debate that Jhope's name unexpectedly became one of the most discussed, not because of anything controversial he personally said or did, but because his enlistment symbolized a decision that divided an entire country. When Jhope officially began his military service, reactions extended far beyond the entertainment industry. Many citizens praised the decision as an example of fairness before the law, arguing that military service represented a civic duty shared by nearly all able-bodied South Korean men. From this perspective, granting BTS an exemption could have created a precedent that might later prove difficult to justify consistently. Legal experts frequently noted that the Military Service Act contained clearly defined exemption categories, and while BTS had undoubtedly elevated South Korea's global reputation, lawmakers had never formally expanded those criteria to include modern pop culture achievements. Official government discussions over possible revisions had taken place for years, but no legislative change ultimately granted BTS special treatment. As a result, Jhope entered military service under the same legal framework that applied to countless other citizens. However, the opposing argument proved equally influential. Many economists, cultural analysts, and entertainment industry observers questioned whether existing policies adequately reflected the realities of 21st-century cultural diplomacy. Various reports had estimated that BTS generated billions of dollars in economic impact for South Korea through tourism, exports, merchandise, and global brand recognition. Supporters of exemption argued that the group's contributions to national prestige rivaled or even exceeded those traditionally recognized through other exemption categories. Several commentators suggested that international cultural influence had become an increasingly important form of national soft power, making BTS a unique case rather than a routine precedent. Others countered that rewriting long-standing military policies for a single group, regardless of its success, could undermine public confidence in equal treatment under the law. The disagreement therefore evolved into a broader philosophical debate about how a nation should define exceptional service to society. Throughout months of public discussion, Jhope himself remained remarkably restrained. Official records show no public campaign requesting preferential treatment, nor did he criticize the government's eventual decision. Instead, he largely focused on fulfilling his responsibilities while maintaining respectful communication with fans before his enlistment. His silence became notable in its own right. Crisis communication specialists later observed that avoiding political commentary likely prevented further polarization during an already emotionally charged national conversation. Yet, despite his personal restraint, his image continued appearing in countless news reports, opinion columns, television debates, and online discussions. Ironically, someone who did nothing controversial became one of the central figures in one of South Korea's most contentious public policy debates, simply because of what he represented. The controversy also exposed a deeper generational divide. Younger audiences familiar with BTS's unprecedented global achievements often viewed the exemption debate through the lens of cultural influence and international competitiveness. Older generations, meanwhile, frequently emphasized civic equality, historical tradition, and the importance of maintaining consistent legal standards regardless of celebrity status. Political scientists pointed out that both perspectives reflected legitimate societal values rather than simple right or wrong positions. In many ways, the discussion transcended BTS entirely. It became a national conversation about identity, fairness, patriotism, and the evolving definition of public service in an increasingly interconnected world. Even after Jhope had begun serving, media discussions continued, demonstrating that the underlying policy questions remained unresolved. Years later, the debate surrounding BTS and military service is remembered less as a controversy caused by the members themselves, and more as a reflection of a society wrestling with changing cultural realities. Official decisions were ultimately made according to law, and Jhope fulfilled his military obligations without public resistance. Yet the questions raised during that period have never completely disappeared.
Should extraordinary global cultural achievements eventually reshape long-established national policies, or should equality before the law always outweigh exceptional accomplishments, no matter how historic they may be? As historians continue examining the BTS era, that question remains one of the most fascinating mysteries left behind by a controversy in which the central figure never actually committed any wrongdoing.
Number 3. Jimin. His success triggered manipulation allegations. Spring 2023 marked one of the most historic moments in BTS members' solo careers. Around the world, anticipation surrounding Jimin's first official solo album had reached extraordinary levels. Fans organized streaming projects across multiple countries, physical album sales exceeded expectations, and international media closely monitored every chart update. When Like Crazy debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, history was made. Jimin became the first South Korean solo artist to achieve the milestone, and the accomplishment was immediately celebrated as another defining moment for K-pop on the global stage. Headlines praised the achievement, congratulatory messages poured in from fans worldwide, and industry analysts highlighted the significance of breaking through one of the most competitive music charts in the world. Yet, almost as quickly as the celebrations began, another narrative emerged, one that questioned not the song itself, but the legitimacy of its commercial success. Within hours, social media was flooded with accusations, theories, and heated debates that threatened to overshadow what should have been a historic victory. The allegations centered primarily on the song's sales performance. Some online critics argued that the unusually high number of digital purchases reflected organized fan-buying campaigns rather than widespread public consumption. Others claimed that coordinated purchasing efforts had artificially inflated the chart position. These arguments quickly spread across online communities, with screenshots of sales data, chart calculations, and unofficial analyses circulating widely. However, official records from Billboard showed that the chart rankings were calculated using the publication's established methodology, which combines digital sales, streaming activity, and radio airplay according to predetermined formulas. At no point did Billboard announce that Jimin's achievement violated its chart rules or resulted from confirmed manipulation. Despite this, the accusations continued gaining attention because they fit a broader online narrative that major fan communities possessed enough organizational power to influence commercial rankings. Music industry analysts offered varying perspectives on the controversy. Some explained that K-pop fandoms have long been recognized for their exceptional purchasing power and highly coordinated promotional efforts. Unlike many Western fan bases that rely primarily on streaming, K-pop supporters often organize legal purchasing campaigns designed to maximize chart performance while remaining within officially permitted guidelines. From this viewpoint, large digital sales alone were not evidence of manipulation, but rather a reflection of one of the defining characteristics of modern K-pop fandom. Other commentators argued that Billboard's methodology itself naturally rewards strong fan engagement, meaning extraordinary sales figures should not automatically be interpreted as suspicious if they comply with the platform's published rules. In other words, critics were often questioning the chart system rather than presenting evidence that Jimin or his agency had broken it. At the same time, the controversy revealed how difficult it has become for unprecedented achievements to exist without immediate skepticism. As BTS continued breaking international records year after year, each new milestone attracted increasingly intense scrutiny from both supporters and critics. Media researchers noted that highly successful artists often face a paradox. The greater their accomplishments become, the more likely some observers are to assume that those achievements must involve hidden advantages or artificial influence. This phenomenon extends far beyond K-pop, having appeared repeatedly throughout the history of sports, film, and popular music, whenever individuals or groups achieve results previously considered impossible. In Jimin's case, his historic Billboard debut became another example of this pattern, where remarkable success generated not only admiration but also suspicion. Officially, however, no evidence was ever presented demonstrating that Jimin, Hybe, or his management had manipulated Billboard's chart system. The organization maintained its published results and, like Crazy, remained recognized as a legitimate #1 hit according to Billboard's official records. Over time, attention gradually shifted towards Jimin's subsequent musical activities, while the allegations slowly faded from mainstream headlines. Nevertheless, discussions surrounding the achievement continue appearing in online communities whenever chart performance, fandom influence, or commercial fairness becomes a topic of debate. For supporters, the controversy reflected an unwillingness among some critics to accept K-pop's expanding global influence. For skeptics, it highlighted ongoing questions about how modern music charts measure popularity in an era of highly organized digital fandoms. Years later, the success of Like Crazy remains both a celebrated milestone and a recurring subject of online discussion. It demonstrated that breaking records often invites intense examination, especially when those records challenge long-established expectations within the global music industry. Whether viewed as an extraordinary triumph powered by one of the world's most dedicated fan bases, or as a catalyst for broader debates about chart methodology, one fact remains unchanged. Billboard never revoked Jimin's achievement, and no official investigation concluded that manipulation had occurred. Yet one question continues to echo whenever this controversy is revisited. Did the debate emerge because something was truly wrong with the numbers, or because history itself is often the hardest thing for people to believe?
Number 2. V. His privacy was repeatedly violated. Long before the cameras began rolling, before airport terminals filled with flashing lenses, and before millions of notifications appeared every time he posted online, Kim Taehyung, better known as V, had already become one of the most recognizable faces in the global entertainment industry. His extraordinary popularity brought countless opportunities, but it also created a reality few people outside the spotlight truly understand. As BTS's international influence expanded year after year, V's daily life gradually became the subject of relentless public attention. Every airport arrival, every restaurant visit, every hotel stay, and even moments intended to remain completely private were increasingly documented by strangers. What initially appeared to be ordinary fan enthusiasm slowly evolved into something far more unsettling. The controversy surrounding V was never defined by a single dramatic scandal. Instead, it unfolded through a series of repeated incidents that collectively revealed one of the darker consequences of global fame: the gradual erosion of personal privacy. Over the years, multiple incidents involving alleged stalkers, commonly referred to in K-pop as "sasang fans," became public knowledge. Various reports documented individuals attempting to obtain unauthorized access to private schedules, following artists during personal activities, or appearing unexpectedly at locations that had never been publicly disclosed. Although official statements issued at different times acknowledged ongoing efforts to protect artists from invasive behavior, in V's case, the frequency with which private moments surfaced online raised increasing concern among fans. Images taken in unofficial settings, rumors regarding his whereabouts, and unauthorized recordings often spread rapidly across social media before they were removed. While not every claim circulating online could be independently verified, official warnings from the agency and V's own public comments confirmed that privacy violations had become a recurring issue rather than isolated incidents.
Perhaps the most revealing moments came directly from V himself. On several occasions, he publicly addressed fans through online platforms, asking them to respect his personal space and refrain from following him during private activities. His messages remained calm and measured, avoiding hostility while clearly expressing discomfort. He reminded supporters that genuine admiration should never come at the expense of another person's safety or peace of mind. Many longtime ARMY welcomed these statements, emphasizing that respectful fans had nothing in common with individuals who crossed legal and ethical boundaries. However, the fact that such reminders needed to be repeated highlighted the persistence of the problem. Security specialists have often noted that excessive celebrity obsession can blur the line between admiration and intrusion, creating situations in which individuals convince themselves that violating boundaries is somehow justified by emotional attachment. The controversy also exposed the growing influence of digital technology in enabling privacy invasions. Unlike previous generations of celebrities, modern public figures face constant surveillance through smartphones, social media, live location sharing, and rapidly circulating online communities. A single unauthorized photograph can travel across multiple platforms within minutes, reaching millions of users before its authenticity is even verified. Experts in digital ethics argue that the speed of online information has fundamentally changed the nature of celebrity privacy. Once personal details are shared publicly, removing them completely becomes nearly impossible. In these situations, this technological reality amplified every single incident, ensuring that even relatively small invasions could quickly become international discussions. Various commentators suggested that the problem was no longer limited to individual stalkers, but had evolved into a broader challenge involving online audiences who unknowingly contributed to spreading invasive content simply by viewing or sharing it. Entertainment analysts have repeatedly pointed out that V's experience reflects a wider issue affecting many high-profile artists throughout the industry. Agencies continue strengthening security measures, implementing legal action where appropriate, and urging fans not to engage with unauthorized content. Nevertheless, preventing privacy violations remains exceptionally difficult because public appearances are often unavoidable and information can spread faster than any official response. While many fans actively report invasive accounts and discourage harmful behavior, others continue seeking increasingly exclusive access, fueling an environment in which personal boundaries are constantly tested. This ongoing tension has transformed privacy itself into one of the most valuable and fragile commodities in modern celebrity culture. Unlike controversies fueled by mistakes, rumors, or public disputes, V's story raises a far more uncomfortable question. He did not create the controversy through a controversial statement or questionable decision. Instead, the controversy emerged because others repeatedly crossed boundaries that should never have been crossed in the first place. Behind the polished performances, carefully staged photographs, and calm public image stood an individual who repeatedly reminded the world that fame does not erase the right to live an ordinary private life. Yet, despite those appeals, the incidents continued to surface over the years. And perhaps that leaves the most unsettling mystery of all. When admiration begins to ignore consent and personal boundaries, can it still be called fandom, or has it become something entirely different?
Number 1. Jungkook. One hat sent the K-pop world into chaos. The year 2025 was expected to mark another defining chapter in Jungkook's solo career. Following an extraordinary period of global commercial success, every public appearance, fashion choice, and social media update attracted immediate international attention. By then, Jungkook had become more than a K-pop idol. He was one of the world's most recognizable young entertainers, with millions of people analyzing even the smallest details of his daily life. In an era where a single photograph can travel across continents within minutes, public figures often discover that seemingly ordinary decisions can expectedly evolve into worldwide controversies.
that reality became impossible to ignore when photographs of Jungkook wearing a hat bearing the slogan, "Make Tokyo Great Again," began circulating online. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than another fashion accessory, but within hours, the discussion shifted away from style entirely and toward history, politics, and cultural memory, transforming one item of clothing into one of the most widely debated moments of his solo career. As the images spread across social media, reactions differed dramatically depending on cultural and historical perspective. Many international fans initially viewed the slogan as an unfamiliar variation of the well-known political phrase, "Make America Great Again," believing it to be little more than a play on words without deeper meaning. However, critics, particularly in South Korea and other parts of East Asia, argued that the wording carried historical implications that could not be separated from the complex legacy of Japan's colonial rule and regional political sensitivities. Although the phrase itself was not illegal, many observers believed that, when viewed through the lens of East Asian history, it could be interpreted in ways that made the choice inappropriate for a public figure with enormous international influence. As often happens during global controversies, the same image generated entirely different interpretations depending on the audience examining it. The debate intensified as screenshots, opinion pieces, and translated discussions rapidly multiplied across digital platforms. Some commentators criticized Jungkook for their considered lack of historical awareness, arguing that internationally influential artists bear a responsibility to recognize the potential symbolism behind messages displayed on clothing. Others urged caution, emphasizing that intent should not automatically be assumed based solely on appearance. Fashion analysts pointed out that celebrities frequently wear garments selected for aesthetic reasons without conducting extensive research into every slogan or design featured on them. Media observers also noted that online controversies often accelerate before complete information becomes available, creating environments where assumptions spread faster than verified facts. As the discussion expanded beyond fan communities, newspapers, broadcasters, and cultural commentators began examining the broader issue of historical sensitivity in global entertainment. Soon afterward, Jungkook addressed the controversy publicly. In his statement, he apologized to those who had been hurt or disappointed, explaining that he had not been aware of the historical and political implications associated with the slogan before wearing the hat. Official reporting consistently indicated that he acknowledged the seriousness of the criticism and accepted responsibility for failing to recognize how the message could be interpreted. His apology was welcomed by many fans, who viewed it as a sincere effort to take accountability rather than dismiss public concern. Others, however, argued that celebrities with global influence should exercise greater caution before appearing publicly with clothing containing potentially controversial messages. The differing reactions demonstrated how public apologies rarely produce universal agreement, particularly when historical issues remain emotionally significant for many communities. Experts in crisis communication later suggested that the incident illustrated the extraordinary challenges faced by internationally recognized entertainers. In previous decades, a fashion mistake might have attracted only local attention. Today, however, every public image is instantly examined by audiences from dozens of countries, each bringing different cultural experiences, historical knowledge, and political sensitivities. A slogan that appears harmless in one context may evoke painful historical memories in another. The Jungkook controversy therefore became more than a discussion about one hat. It evolved into a broader case study on globalization, symbolism, and the responsibilities carried by public figures whose influence extends across vastly different cultures. Various commentators argued that the incident reflected the increasing complexity of celebrity life in an interconnected world, where even unintended actions can generate international consequences within hours. Eventually, media attention moved on, and the controversy gradually faded from daily headlines. Jungkook continued his career, while discussions surrounding the incident slowly became part of the broader history of BTS's public journey, rather than an ongoing crisis. Yet the episode remains one of the clearest reminders that modern controversies are not always created by deliberate actions or malicious intent. Sometimes they emerge from the collision between global visibility and deeply rooted historical memories, two forces that rarely leave room for simple explanations. Whether viewed as an honest mistake, a lesson in cultural awareness, or an example of how rapidly online outrage can escalate, the incident continues to provoke discussion whenever the relationship between celebrities and public responsibility is examined. And perhaps the final mystery is this: in a world where every image is scrutinized by millions, is it truly possible for any global superstar to avoid controversy forever?